Welcome back to Occult Vatican, where the darkest secrets of the Holy See are uncovered. Today, we're diving into one of the most disturbing mysteries we've ever investigated, the secret Vatican ritual that supposedly takes place deep within the Apostolic Library. Get ready, because what you're about to find out might shake your beliefs about one of the most powerful institutions in the world. Imagine, for a moment, the silent corridors of the Vatican Library in the middle of the night. Over 1 million books, ancient manuscripts, and secret documents rest on its shelves, holding knowledge that ordinary people were never meant to access. But there's something much more sinister happening in those underground passages, something way beyond just preserving knowledge. We're talking about occult practices dating back to the earliest centuries of Christianity, rituals carefully hidden from the outside world. The Vatican Apostolic Library isn't just a repository of holy books and historical texts. It's a labyrinth of secrets, where every hallway hides mysteries that challenge what we think we know about reality. During our investigation, we came across disturbing accounts from staff who worked in the most restricted sections. They spoke of strange sounds echoing through the halls at midnight, unexplained lights flickering in supposedly empty rooms, and a heavy presence that seemed to watch every move. What really led us here was the testimony of a former librarian who spent decades in the deepest parts of the library. He revealed the existence of a hidden chamber located on the lowest levels, where ceremonies supposedly mix early Christian traditions with ancient occult elements. According to him, only a select group of cardinals and scholars have access to this place, and the rituals there aim to unlock forbidden knowledge and connect with forces beyond our physical reality. What makes this even more disturbing is that the Catholic Church has always publicly condemned any form of occultism or esoteric practices. How can an institution that preaches against magic and the supernatural be involved in secret rituals that seem to contradict its own teachings? The answer might lie in the early days of Christianity, when the line between religion and magic was much blurrier than we imagine. Have you ever wondered why the Vatican Library holds so many texts about alchemy, astrology, and other practices considered heretical? Why are medieval grimoires and ceremonial magic treatises carefully preserved in the most secret archives? Officially, these documents are kept for historical study, but our investigations suggest a much more complex and disturbing reality. To understand the true nature of the Vatican secret ritual, we first need to dive into the forbidden manuscripts that form the theoretical basis for these occult practices. The Vatican Library houses one of the largest collections of esoteric texts in the world, many never available to the public or even academia. These include treatises on angelic magic, manuals on demon invocation, and Gnostic texts condemned by the early Church. One of the most intriguing manuscripts is the so-called Codex Secretus, a document supposedly containing instructions for performing the ritual in the library. This codex, written in archaic Latin, mixed with Kabbalistic symbols and Egyptian hieroglyphs, describes a complex ceremony intended to open dimensional portals to access what's called the Universal Akasha, a spiritual plane where all past, present, and future knowledge is stored. According to this manuscript, the ritual must occur in a specific room within the library, a circular chamber located exactly at the geographical center of the complex. This room, known to insiders as the Sanctum Librarium, is built over an ancient Roman temple dedicated to Janus, the god of passages and transitions. The choice of location is no accident but a deliberate appropriation of pagan energies for esoteric Christian purposes. The process described in the Codex Secretus involves 7 participants, each representing one of the 7 heavenly virtues, as well as the 7 planets from ancient astrology. They must fast for 40 days, purify their bodies with ritual baths using waters blessed with specific elements, and memorize invocations in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. The preparation is so rigorous that only high-ranking clergy with decades of esoteric study can complete it properly. During our investigation, we obtained clandestine photographs of some of these manuscripts from a researcher who briefly worked in the secret archives. The images show complex diagrams featuring magical circles, inverted pentagrams, and symbols blending Christian iconography with clearly pagan elements. On one page, there's a depiction of an angelic figure with features more like Egyptian deities than traditional biblical angels. Another unsettling document is the Liber Umbrarum, or Book of Shadows, containing accounts of rituals performed over the centuries. This manuscript acts like a collective diary where each generation of practitioners recorded their experiences and discoveries. The oldest entries date back to the medieval period, describing extraordinary phenomena, appearances of luminous entities, prophetic visions about the Church's future, and alleged communications with saints and martyrs who died centuries ago. What stands out the most in these accounts is their consistency. Different authors, separated by centuries, report nearly identical experiences, feeling watched by invisible presences, sudden temperature changes, and especially, access to knowledge that couldn't have been obtained by ordinary means. A 15th century cardinal described having a vision of archaeological discoveries that wouldn't be made for another 400 years. But perhaps the most disturbing part of these manuscripts is how they theologically justify these practices. The texts argue that God, in his infinite wisdom, hid certain knowledge in the spiritual realms, and it's up to the most devoted and prepared to access these truths through special methods. They cite obscure biblical passages, mainly from apocryphal books, to support the use of practices that seem to contradict official church doctrine on the surface. Even the physical structure of the Vatican Library offers clues about its true esoteric function. Looking at the original architectural plans, you see it was designed following sacred geometric principles far beyond mere functionality. The library was built as a gigantic three-dimensional mandala, with each section, corridor, and room placed according to complex astrological and numerological calculations. The deepest underground level, officially a climate-controlled storage area, actually houses a network of interconnected chambers forming a ritual labyrinth. This design isn't accidental but follows patterns from ancient Greco-Roman mystery temples, where initiates had to follow specific paths to reach altered states of consciousness. Every twist in the labyrinth is calculated to create acoustic effects that amplify whispers and produce echoes seeming to come from all directions. At the center of this underground labyrinth is the already mentioned Sanctum Librarium, a perfect circular room 12 meters wide with a dome replicating exactly the proportions of the Roman Pantheon. The walls are lined with black marble sourced from the same quarries used for ancient pagan temples, embedded with golden symbols that, under specific lighting, reveal a complex three-dimensional astrological map. The floor of this chamber is even more impressive. Made of an intricate mosaic combining precious stones from around the world, it forms a massive permanent magic circle. Each stone was selected not just for beauty, but for its metaphysical properties, according to ancient esoteric traditions. Rubies from the east represent fire, South American emeralds symbolize earth, Asian sapphires water, and African diamonds air. Right in the center of this circle of precious stones is an altar, carved from a single piece of volcanic obsidian, polished to a shine that reflects not only physical light but supposedly spiritual energies. During rituals, the most sacred manuscripts are placed on this altar, including unique copies of texts the official church claims were destroyed centuries ago. Lighting in the chamber comes from an ingenious system of cut crystals that channel outside light through nearly invisible vertical shafts. At certain times of the year, when the planets align in specific configurations, this natural light creates geometric patterns inside the room that match exactly the diagrams in the ritual manuscripts. It's no coincidence these alignments happen on the dates when the most important rituals are held. The walls of the Sanctum Librarium are decorated with frescoes that at first glance depict traditional biblical scenes. But closer examination reveals hidden layers of symbolism. Angelic figures make hand gestures corresponding to mudras from Eastern esoteric traditions. Saints' halos contain astrological symbols disguised as decorative motifs, and in several scenes you can spot elements directly linked to alchemy, astrology, and other occult arts. The chamber's ventilation system also follows esoteric principles. Air circulates through ducts forming a descending spiral, creating currents said to facilitate trance states and deep meditation. Special incenses, prepared according to ancient formulas kept in the secret archives, are burned in braziers strategically placed to create an atmosphere blending aromatic elements from Christian, Islamic, Jewish, and pagan traditions. So who exactly are the people taking part in these secret Vatican rituals? Our investigation uncovered an occult society within the Church itself, a select circle of cardinals, expert librarians, and scholars dedicated to what they call transcendental theology. These men all have decades of study in ancient languages, Hermetic philosophy, and apocryphal texts, forming a parallel hierarchy operating in the shadows of the official church structure. The selection process for this inner circle is extremely secretive and rigorous. Potential candidates are observed for years. Their reactions to controversial texts are carefully evaluated. Their ability to keep absolute secrets is tested through gradual revelations. Only those showing both the intellectual skill and perfect discretion are considered for initiation. Initiation itself can take years. Approved candidates start with access only to the least controversial secret manuscripts, studying medieval alchemy and early Christian astrology under constant supervision. Gradually, as they prove reliability and comprehension, they're exposed to ever more esoteric material, including grimoires on angelic magic and treatises on communicating with spiritual entities. During this training, initiates learn not only esoteric theory, but also practical ritual skills. They study meditation techniques derived from Christian mystical traditions, but adapted to include elements from other spiritual paths. They learn to prepare incenses using secret formulas, combining ingredients from different continents. Most importantly, they develop the ability to safely and consciously enter altered states of awareness. More experienced members take specific roles during rituals. There's the keeper of the texts, who selects and prepares the manuscripts for each ceremony. The master of invocations, fluent in ancient sacred languages, leads the verbal parts of the ritual. The protector of the portals specializes in creating and maintaining spiritual protections during practices opening connections to other planes of existence. We managed to identify some of these individuals through clues found in official documents and secret archive access records. An Italian cardinal, expert in Gnostic texts, spent decades studying manuscripts officially labeled heretical. A German librarian with a PhD in ancient Semitic languages has unrestricted access to the most dangerous medieval grimoires. A French theologian, author of books on Christian mysticism, apparently uses his academic work as cover for much deeper studies in practical occultism. What intrigues us most is how these men reconcile their official Christian faith with practices that seem to fundamentally contradict church teachings. The answer might lie in a very particular interpretation of Christianity, one that sees Jesus not only as Savior, but as the greatest magician and miracle worker in history. For these initiates, the miracles described in the Gospels aren't unique supernatural events, but demonstrations of spiritual principles that can be understood and, to some extent, replicated by those with the right knowledge and preparation. They argue Jesus, during the undocumented years of his life, the so-called lost years, traveled east and learned advanced spiritual techniques which he later incorporated into his mission. Though not accepted by official theology, this theory would justify using practices derived from other spiritual traditions as a legitimate part of a deeper Christian path. Now we arrive at the most disturbing part of our investigation, a detailed description of the Vatican's secret ritual itself. Based on clandestine manuscripts and testimonies from our anonymous source, we can finally reveal how this extraordinary ceremony is performed in the depths of the Vatican Library. The ritual always starts during a new moon, when natural darkness helps what participants call the opening of veils between dimensions. 7 chosen initiates enter the library through separate secret entrances, avoiding any chance of being seen together. Each wears a specific robe according to their ritual role. The keeper of the texts wears crimson red, the master of invocations deep blue, and so on. following a color code linked to the 7 spiritual rays of Western esoteric tradition. In the Sanctum Librarium, the necessary manuscripts are already arranged on the obsidian altar. The Codex Secretus takes center stage, flanked by other ancient texts including fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls never publicly revealed, pages from the legendary Book of Raziel, and copies of Hermetic treatises attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. Their placement follows geometric patterns meant to amplify spiritual power. The ritual begins with purification of the space using incenses made with secret formulas. The blend includes frankincense from the Middle East, sandalwood from India, copal from the Americas, and exotic ingredients like Egyptian mummy powder and ashes of ritually burned ancient scrolls. Participants describe the smell as both familiar and otherworldly, evoking deep ancestral memories. Each participant takes their designated spot around the circle of precious stones, forming a perfect heptagon. The Master of Invocations then starts chanting in ancient languages, alternating Hebrew, Greek, Latin, and even older tongue, said to have been revealed in earlier rituals. These chants aren't just mechanical recitations, they follow melodies, creating sound frequencies calculated to induce altered states of consciousness. As the chanting continues, the participants experience increasingly intense sensations. At first, they feel a deep peace and spiritual connection. Then visual perception shifts. Candle flames flicker impossibly. Shadows on walls seem to come alive, and the golden symbols in the marble pulse with their own light. The climax happens when the Master recites a specific prayer from the Codex Secretus, an invocation that supposedly opens a temporary portal to the universal Akasha. Participants describe this moment as an explosion of golden light filling the chamber, accompanied by an expanded consciousness, allowing access to impossible knowledge. In this expanded state, participants say they receive visions about the Church's future, deep theological revelations, and direct access to lost texts and knowledge throughout history. One cardinal reported seeing entire pages from manuscripts burned in the Library of Alexandria. Another described gaining detailed instructions for spiritual healing, later confirmed by ancient texts discovered years after. The ritual ends with prayers of protection and gratitude, followed by integration time where experiences are carefully recorded in secret diaries. These logs are then studied and compared, building a growing body of knowledge said to complement and deepen official church teachings. The implications of the Vatican secret ritual go far beyond the library walls. Our investigation found that many major decisions by the Church throughout history may have been influenced by insights gained through these occult ceremonies. Historical documents show disturbing correlations between dates of secret rituals and big changes in Vatican policies. Take, for example, the reforms of the Second Vatican Council, which dramatically changed the Church's stance toward the modern world. Clandestine records suggest intense rituals were carried out in the months before the Council, and some of the most revolutionary changes might have been inspired by revelations received during these ceremonies. This could explain why some decisions seem to come out of nowhere, lacking clear precedents in official theology. Even more disturbing is the impact of these rituals on the participants themselves. Our anonymous source described profound shifts in perception after years of involvement, developing skills he can't explain logically, an uncanny ability to understand languages he never studied, prophetic dreams that later come true, and a supernatural intuition for locating lost manuscripts in the vast library archives. Other former participants contacted discreetly confirmed similar experiences. One retired librarian told us about recurring visions of an astral library where all humanity's lost knowledge is preserved. He claims to mentally visit this place and retrieve information later verified through conventional research. Another ex-initiate developed a seemingly paranormal ability to detect important manuscripts by touch, identifying rare texts even among thousands of similar documents. These phenomena raise deep questions about the nature of reality and knowledge. Are these rituals really capable of accessing spiritual dimensions where lost information is preserved? Or are participants simply activating latent human mental potential through sophisticated psychological techniques? We may never know for sure, but the practical results are undeniable. What we do know is that the existence of these secret rituals reveals a hidden side of the Vatican, sharply contrasting its public image. While officially condemning all occultism, the Church seems to secretly cultivate and utilize esoteric practices at its highest levels. This contradiction suggests a far more complex and nuanced spirituality than official doctrine publicly admits. Our investigation also found connections between these library rituals and other secret Vatican practices. There are signs similar ceremonies happen in other sacred places, including the catacombs beneath St. Peter's Basilica and secret chambers in the Vatican museums. Each place specializes in different kinds of knowledge: the library on textual wisdom, the catacombs on communication with saints and martyrs, and the museums on objects with spiritual power. To those who have followed this disturbing journey into the Vatican's deepest secrets, thank you for joining us. If this content intrigued you, be sure to check out our other investigations about the Holy See's mysteries. We explore secret exorcism archives, hidden treasures in Vatican basements, and the unrevealed prophecies of Fatima. What other secrets are still buried in the shadowy corridors of the Vatican Library? What forbidden knowledge awaits brave investigators willing to challenge centuries of official silence? The Vatican's secret ritual may be just the tip of an iceberg of mysteries reaching to the very foundations of the Catholic Church. The truth, as always, remains hidden in the shadows, waiting for those ready to seek it.